Hello, and welcome into this recorded session of TRS Express for Tier 1 members. In this 45-minute presentation, we'll touch on all of the benefits that TRS administers so that you can better understand the role that TRS plays during your active career and in your retirement. This particular session is geared specifically for Tier 1 TRS members. Tier 1 members are those who began their public service in the state of Illinois before January 1 of 2011. Now, to start with some basics, TRS is a defined benefit program. That differs from other types of retirement or pension investments, so we want you to understand exactly what being a defined benefit program means for you. Then we'll start talking about retirement benefits, which is what most people think about when they think of TRS. I'll then hand the microphone over to Tanya, who will give you some information about TRS's optional supplemental savings plan. Then we'll talk about disability and death benefits, the retirement timeline, and some post-retirement matters. TRS is a defined benefit program, and this means that all TRS members contribute at the same rate. All active TRS members, Tier 1 and Tier 2, contribute 9% of their gross earnings to TRS. You can't opt that up, you can't opt it down, and you can't opt out. Participation in TRS is compulsory. It is required if you are a public school teacher in the state of Illinois. Your contributions are then pooled and invested by the TRS Investments Department. This forms what's called the TRS Trust Fund. It is from the trust fund that you'll ultimately receive your lifetime retirement benefit. If you are receiving a disability benefit during your active career, that's also paid by the trust, as are any death benefits that are payable after you pass away. Now, as a defined benefit program, there are two defining features. One is that the amount you have contributed to the system, the interest and investment income that those dollars have accrued, or essentially the balance in your account, has nothing to do with the calculation of your retirement benefit. Instead, there is a middle school math problem that's written out in the Illinois Pension Code, and that's what TRS uses to calculate your lifetime retirement benefit. The really important thing about a defined benefit program is that once you start receiving that monthly retirement benefit, you'll receive that monthly benefit every single month for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live. Now, our actuaries say you're all going to live till about age 86. But even if you live longer than age 86, you won't run out of benefit because we're going to be paying you not out of your own coffers, but out of the TRS Trust Fund. Now, TRS offers a supplemental savings plan that is optional to all active, full-time, and part-time contractual members, and that is, again, optional to you, but that is a way that you can grow a benefit on top of what TRS pays through the defined benefit pension. Retirement eligibility for Tier 1 members is determined using two numbers. One is your age, and the other is your years of service credit. So with at least 5 years of service credit, a Tier 1 member is eligible to start receiving a benefit at the age of 62. Now, for Tier 1 members, the more service credit you have, the younger the age at which you can begin to receive that benefit. So if you get to 10 years of service credit, TRS will move that retirement eligibility from 62 back to 60. Now, 60 is the legislatively determined normal retirement age. And by that, I mean we are set up to pay you from 60 to death. And our actuaries say you're all going to live till about age 86. Now, if you want to take your benefit earlier than age 60, you may. If you reach 20 years of service credit, you could start receiving that benefit as early as age 55. But again, we're set up to pay you from 60 to death. So if you move that retirement date back to age 55, we have to stretch that benefit over a longer period of retirement. We call that early retirement. And that means that we have to reduce that earned benefit by 6% for each of the years that you're under age 60. So if you were to take a benefit, for example, at age 55, it could be reduced by as much as 30%. Now, that reduction is waived if you have achieved the other threshold for regular retirement, which for Tier 1 members is 35 years of service. So if you attain 35 years of service credit, we will consider you to be a normal retiree, meaning not an early retiree, and there'd be no reduction to your benefit, regardless of your age, as long as you have at least 35 total years of service. Once we've determined your eligibility based on age and service credit, then we employ that middle school math problem to determine your lifetime dollars and cents benefit. And that starts with service credit. We multiply your service credit or your years of service credit by a formula factor, which for most service is 2.2%. That determines what percentage of your final average salary that you're entitled to receive as a benefit for your lifetime. Now, service credit is the driver, so we want to talk about what goes into service credit, and there's also some malleability to the term final average salary. So in these next few slides, I want to talk about service credit and about final average salary, and impart some ways that you could possibly impact those numbers to either get yourself a higher retirement benefit or to possibly even accelerate your retirement eligibility. There are 4 elements to service credit. The first is earned service. For all of you, most of your service credit total is going to come from your earned service. You show up in August, you work until May, that generally gets you 1 year of service credit in the system. Now, legally speaking, the pension code defines a year of service credit as 170 paid days. Now, most teachers are working either a 180 or a 185-day contract. Administrators may be on a 10-month or a 12-month contract that could be as high as 260 days for the school year. However, everybody earns service credit in the same way. So whether you're a substitute teacher or the superintendent, that 170th paid day of work is what's getting you that full year of service credit. Now, those who work more than 170 days do not get more than a year of service credit because you can't get more than a year of service credit within the legal school year, July 1 to June 30. Now, if you work fewer than 170 days, we're still giving you service credit for every day that you do work. So if you worked, for example, 94 days, we'll take that 94, divide by 170, and we'll grant you 0.553 of a year of service credit. So you are getting credit for every single day that you work up to that 170th day when you've achieved that full year of service credit for the year. Now, the first way that you can enhance that service credit total is through the conversion of unused, uncompensated sick leave days. So as a district grants you sick leave days, you're typically accruing that annual allotment every year, minus however many days that you use. So you're typically accruing a large number of unused, uncompensated sick leave days throughout the course of your career. TRS will convert those sick leave days to service credit using that same 170-day standard at the point of retirement. So if throughout the course of your career you have amassed 340 unused sick leave days, well, that's the maximum that you can use for conversion to service credit at TRS. We divide that 340 days by that same 1 year standard of 170 days, and we can grant you up to 2 full years of service credit for unused sick leave. Now, again, every single day has value. So if you haven't hit the 170 mark or you haven't hit the 340 mark, we're still going to give you credit for every single day of unused sick leave. We simply divide that total number of unused, uncompensated sick leave days by that 170-day standard, and we'll grant you that amount of service credit up to that 2-year maximum. Now, if you have a former employer in your history, another school district or another TRS-covered employer where you worked and you had some unused, uncompensated sick leave days left when you left that employer, well, make sure that those days appear on your TRS record. We take information from those districts when you have left that gives us that number of unused sick leave days to add to your record. If, as you're looking at your TRS benefits report, you see that in that list there's a district that's missing, we'll give TRS a call. We'll send you a form called a Former Employee Sick Leave Certification Form. You can send that back to that district. They'll report the number of unused days that were left behind, and we'll add them to your record after the fact. This doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost your district anything. Sick leave is about the only kind of free service credit that there is. So make sure that you get all of those days accounted for, and the sooner the better. Now, the second way that you can add to that service credit total is through the purchase of service, or what we call optional service credit. Now, you can't just shovel additional money into the system to formulate additional years of service, but if you have optional service credit that falls into any one of these 5 categories, you can buy that service credit into your record to increase that total. Starting with out-of-state teaching or out-of-system service, you can buy up to 10 years of public school teaching that occurred in another state. There are also some cities that have their own public retirement system. For example, Chicago and St. Louis both have their own systems. So that would fall under the category of out-of-state teaching. That's why we sometimes call it out-of-system service. Leave of absence time can be purchased up. So if you are missing a portion of a year or a full year because you were on any kind of a board-approved leave of absence, you can buy up to 3 years of total leave of absence credit. And that would include RIF, or what we used to be called reduction in force. We call that involuntary layoff. So if you lost the job due to a reduction in force, you can include that in the amount of leave of absence credit that you could purchase up to a maximum of 3 years. If you have active duty military credit that occurred prior to your TRS service, you can buy up to 2 years of active duty military. If you ever took a refund of monies from TRS, we issued that refund, so we have all the information we need to calculate the cost of repaying that refund, and that would reinstate any previously refunded TRS service. Now, you also have the option to buy Illinois private school credit up to a maximum of 2 years. Now, this particular purchase option has a deadline. If you are interested in purchasing Illinois private school credit, you must get that service credit verified by June 30, 2028. You don't have to pay for that optional service by that date, but you have to get it recognized and on your TRS record by June 30, 2028. Then, like these other types of optional service credit, you have until the date of retirement to decide whether or not you want to purchase that service credit. The fourth element of service credit is reciprocal service. Now, this is also like optional service in as much as you have the option to use or not use this reciprocal service toward your benefit, but this is typically service credit that you already own with another public retirement system. There are actually 13 public retirement systems in the state of Illinois, and all of those systems are part of what's called the Illinois Retirement Systems Reciprocal Act. So we will treat those other services or those other systems as sister systems, and we'll combine the service credit you have with those other systems toward the calculation of your total service credit. Service credit, for example, as a teacher's aide would not be TRS service, but service that would have been paid into the Illinois Municipal Retirement System. If you have time with the Illinois Community College System or with a state university in the state of Illinois, that would be time under the State Universities Retirement System, or SURS. State Employees Retirement System is for those who work for a state agency. The Chicago Teachers Pension Fund is the TRS equivalent for teachers who work for the city of Chicago. There are others, most of them in Cook County and most of them smaller, but any service that you worked as a public servant in the state of Illinois is typically going to have provided service credit under one of these other reciprocal systems. So if you have time with one of those other systems that equals at least a year, that can be included in the calculation of your total service credit. The exception to that 1 year rule is the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund. If you had time as a teacher's aide, specifically as a teacher's aide, that predates your TRS service credit, you can use that service credit if it's less than a year, but otherwise it has to be at least 1 full year of reciprocal service to meet the qualification for inclusion. Additionally, the service credit that you have with that other system must be non-concurrent. It can't overlap your existing TRS service because, again, you can't get more than 1 year of service credit in a year. So we can only use the non-concurrent portion of that service. Now, once we've determined your total TRS service credit, we're going to multiply that number by a formula factor to determine what percentage of your final average salary that you would receive as a benefit. Now, for most TRS service credit, that multiplier will be 2.2%. Since July 1 of 1998, the multiplier has been 2.2%. But if you have service credit that occurred before July 1 of 1998, you'd want to contact TRS and find out if you owe a 2.2 upgrade cost. And if you do, we can tell you what your options are for paying that. So once we've determined that percentage, then we must determine your final average salary. Now, this is also a number over which you can exact some control or have some influence during your active career. There are a couple ways that you can do that, which I'll mention in just a moment. Now, the legal definition of final average salary is the average of your highest 4 consecutive salaries out of the last 10 years of service. Your highest 4 consecutive salaries out of your last 10 years of service. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be your final 4 years, but if you work for the same employer in the same position, you get a raise every year, and you don't drop any extra duty stipends, it probably will be your final 4 years. But the way that this definition is written, it offers a little bit of flexibility, such that if you had to go part-time or change jobs toward the end of your career, it wouldn't necessarily negatively impact your final average salary because we can look within that last 10 years of service window and determine the highest 4 consecutive years within that 10-year window. So it doesn't have to be your final four. Now, salary isn't just your regular step and lane placement on the salary schedule either. It includes every single dollar that you earn in conjunction with your TRS covered employment. So if you have an extra duty stipend, if you coach a sport, sponsor a club, host the prom, if you do lunchroom duty, playground supervision, detention duty, anything that you do that carries that extra stipend or that extra pay is going to raise that reportable number to TRS, and that's going to get you a higher reportable creditable earnings number, and that's going to mean a little bit higher salary upon which your benefit would be based. Now, if your district pays your 9% TRS contribution for you, or if your district offers a retirement incentive, these are also numbers that will increase that final average salary number within those 4 years used to calculate your final average salary. Now, as a caveat, don't take on too many extra duties, which is one way that you can increase this number, because we can only count salary increases year to year within that 4 year window that's used to calculate your final average of 20% per year. So don't take on coaching 3 sports and sponsoring the prom all in one year, because that may raise your salary more than the 20% that we can count. So you might want to spread those new duties out over the course of that 4 year period. Now, additionally, if you are a person who is on a salary schedule that is impacted by your education level, meaning if you have lanes as, bachelor's degree, bachelor's plus 8, bachelor's plus 16, master's degree, master's plus, and so on, you can move lane to lane at any time during your career, and that's going to raise your reportable salary, not just that year, but for every year for the rest of your career because you're now earning in a higher lane. So that's another way that you could impact your final average salary. Even if you're currently in your 20s or 30s, you can definitely move lane to lane, and that's going to have a future impact, a positive impact on your eventual final average salary. If you download the slides from this presentation, there is some additional information about the final average salary calc in that appendix. So you might want to take the opportunity at the end to either access the QR code or to follow that link. So those are the elements of your retirement calculation. I want to give just a couple of examples of how it is that those numbers come together to formulate a dollars and cents benefit. So in our first example, we have an individual who is age 60. So she is at the regular retirement age as a Tier 1 member. She has 30 years of service credit and a final average salary of $85,000. So we take her 30 years of service credit, we multiply that by 2.2%. So she is entitled to 66% of her $85,000 final average salary. So that means we'll pay her a $56,000 or $56,100 annual pension benefit. TRS pays once a month, so we will divide that $56,100 by 12, and we'll pay her a monthly pension of $4,675. And that's where we stop calculating for this individual because she's at the regular retirement age. We'll just go ahead and pay her that monthly benefit then for the rest of her life. Now, conversely, if we have an individual who is at the minimum retirement age for their tier of membership, well, this person is got one additional layer of math. He's got the same 30 years of service credit and the same final average salary, but he is at the minimum retirement age. He is 5 years under the regular retirement age. So the math is still the same. 30 years times 2.2 is still 66% of his final average salary. There's still a $56,100 benefit, but that must be reduced to accommodate paying him for a longer period of retirement. So he is 5 years under the age of 60. 5 years times 6% is a 30% reduction. So his annual pension benefit then is reduced from $56,100 to $39,270, and that reduction is permanent. That benefit is then reduced for the rest of his life. Now, this is where we often get the question, well, what if I stop working at 55 and simply wait until I'm chronologically 60 to start receiving the benefit? Is there still a reduction? No, there's no reduction at all because we calculate that reduction based on your age at the date you begin to receive the benefit. So even if he stops work at age 55, he can avoid that reduction by simply waiting until he's 60 and taking the benefit as a non-reduced benefit at the age of 60. Now, the maximum benefit that TRS can pay is 75% of your final average salary. Mathematically, 34 years of service credit is 74.8%, which we would round up to 75, if you are at least age 60. So if you have 34 years of service credit at the age of 60, you'd receive that maximum benefit of 75% of your final average salary. If you're under the age of 60, you would need to meet that other threshold for regular retirement, which is 35 years of service. So 35 years of service credit is still going to get you 75%. If you're under the age of 60. 35 years times 2.2 is more than 75%, but the maximum benefit we can pay by law is 75% of your final average salary. Now, working longer than 34 years, whether it's to attain 35 years or to fill out your contract or to see your last kid through college, whatever your reason for working longer than 34, it's not as if you have stifled your benefit. It's not like your benefit is frozen at 34 years. You'd still continue to see a growth of your final average salary, which is going to get you a higher benefit eventually. So you're still impacting that other factor in the formula. If you have been thinking, and I hope you have, about your own retirement scenario, your own age and service credit and sick leave, etc., throughout the course of this explanation, let us help you put that together and come up with a black and white example of exactly how your numbers and this math play together. The best way to do that is through the use of the benefit estimator. And there's a couple of ways that you can access the estimator. One is to call TRS. Speak to a benefits counselor or a member service representative who right then on the phone can take some information from you. It's shown on the screen. And we'll take that information, apply it to the formula, and we'll generate a benefit estimate result for you right then on the phone. What we need to know is, when do you want to retire? How many dollars are you going to earn this year and in any future year? What are your salary rates for these next few years? Total sick leave that you believe you'll have available to you at the end of your career. Information about any district retirement incentive, and whether or not you want to include reciprocal service, if you have it, in the calculation of that benefit. And again, in just about 3 minutes on the phone, we can calculate what your benefit would be, give you that information by phone, and then mail you out a black and white copy so you have that as a takeaway. That's one way to access the estimator. The other is to use the online estimator. So you can log into your online account through the TRS website, which is shown there on your screen right now. Click on Benefit Estimator, and it'll ask you step by step to enter this information for yourself. That'll tell us, again, it'll tell the estimator what it is that you're going to do. We'll get you a benefit estimate result right then in PDF format that you can print. And nicely, when you do those online estimates, we can see them so that when you have questions, you can call us up the next day. Say, hey, I did estimate number 6 overnight. I have some questions about that, and we can pull up your estimate number 6 and be looking at it on our screen and answer your questions in real time. The benefit estimator is the single best tool that we have to help you plan financially for retirement. So take full advantage of that estimator and our expertise, and make sure that anytime you have a change to that core data, if you're offered a retirement incentive, if you get a new contract, take a new position, move over a lane on the salary schedule, if your sick leave tanks, anything that you do that impacts the core data that's used to calculate your benefit, get a new benefit estimate and see exactly what that means for you. The estimates are free. You can do as many of those as you want to online. We'll do as many as you want to over the phone. So take full advantage of the estimator so you know exactly what to expect dollars and cents wise from TRS and retirement. Now I'm going to take a pause and a drink, and I'm going to hand the microphone and your attention over to Tanya Coleman. Tanya is one of our Voya partners, and they administer the TRS Supplemental Savings Plan.
Thank you. In 2018, the Illinois General Assembly passed law to amend your pension code to include an optional retirement benefit for all TRS members, known as the TRS Supplemental Savings Plan. Now, the intent is to provide one uniform, high-quality, low-cost plan for all TRS members. TRS has chosen Voya to be the record keeper of this plan. Now, the TRS Supplemental Savings Plan, which I will refer to as the SSP, is a 457B deferred contribution plan that complements your TRS pension. Your participation in the 457B plan is optional. So a 457B plan is an employer-sponsored, tax-favored retirement savings account. You decide how much you want to contribute up to the maximum annual limits of $23,500 set by the IRS for 2025. The minimum contribution is $30 per pay or 1% per pay, and your contributions are automatically deducted from your paycheck. Now, the TRS-SSP has several options to help you reach your retirement goals: a traditional 457B option and or a Roth 457B option. Now, you can choose the traditional 457B option and take advantage of the tax deferral upfront. So no income taxes are withheld on your contributions, which lowers your current taxable earnings. So your contributions and any earnings accumulated are tax deferred. Now, you will pay income tax on your account withdrawals in the future, and that's typically in retirement. Now, you can also choose a Roth 457B option, which takes income tax out of your pay before contributions are applied to the 457B account. So income taxes are withheld from your contributions before they're invested into the account, and your contributions are not tax deductible. So the advantage is in the future, when you're eligible for distribution from the plan, you'll be able to withdraw the money, including any earnings, tax-free, but you must meet the IRS rules. So the qualifying IRS rules require contributions to be held in the account at least 5 years before the date of distribution, and you must be 59 and a half, and that's assuming you've separated from service from your employer, disability, or death. Now, you can choose to contribute to a combination of both. So a portion of your contribution on a pre-tax basis, your traditional, and a portion on an after-tax basis, your Roth. Now, one of the most commonly asked questions is, what is the big difference between the TRS 457B and a 403B? Well, the TRS 457B, in order to participate, you must be a TRS member. And for the 403B, eligibility may depend upon what your district stipulates. For the TRS 457B, there is no 10% IRS penalty. So what that means is, if you no longer are with TRS, you are able to withdraw the money that you've put into the account without the 10% penalty before age 59 and a half. For 403B, there is a 10% penalty. Even if you're separated from service, if you're under 59 and a half, the IRS will penalize you 10% if money is taken out. The TRS 457B has a special 3-year catch-up, and the 403B has a 15-year special catch-up. Now, the TRS 457B has unforeseen emergency withdrawal. It does not have loan provisions. The 403B has hardship and loan provisions. Now, once you are invested in the account, you have a couple of ways to invest your money. You have the do-it-myself option, which allows you to select from various funds to build a unique portfolio for your retirement needs. You can pick funds to create a strategy that you think will fit best your time horizon and risk tolerance, and you'll manage that portfolio of funds over time. Now, there are tools and resources available online to help you manage that portfolio, and you're welcome to reach out to your local retirement education specialist for guidance. Or you can leave the investing decisions up to the professionals and take a more hands-off approach, having it done for you with target date fund options. Now, these one-stop shop funds are a pre-diversified mix of investments managed by professional fund managers who automatically adjust the risk and return exposure of the fund as you get closer to retirement. Now, you can choose to invest in a combination of both options available. So you have the ability also to change your investment selections daily. Now, we don't recommend you change the funds frequently. Now, to participate in the TRS-SSP, you must be an active TRS member, with the exception of hourly and extra duty personnel. So how can you enroll? Step 1, go to TRSILSSP.voya.com, select Register Now, and enroll. You'll answer questions that will assist you in setting your retirement goals. And then next, you'll choose how much you want to save from your paycheck, selecting pre or post-tax options or both. And then step 2, select your investments. Do it for me, do it myself, or a combination of the two. And then step 3, you'll choose your beneficiaries. Now, a beneficiary would receive your plan assets in the event of your death. You can make updates anytime online or by phone. Now, after you complete these steps, you will confirm your choices and then submit. Now, once submit, you'll receive a welcome email. Now, all TRS members will receive a PIN, personal identification number, in a plain security envelope in the mail. Now, this does not mean that you're enrolled into the plan. It is an additional security feature to protect your information. Now, this PIN is used to make any changes online or by phone once you're enrolled. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tanya, for that information. We're going to switch gears now to TRS disability benefits. Now, I only will give one slide to TRS disability because it's a benefit that less than 1% of our active membership ever use. So we hope you'll never need it, but if you do end up needing it, we need you to know exactly how it is that it's calculated and how to access it. So if at any point during your active career you find that you're ill or injured or otherwise incapacitated to where you can't render the duties of your job description, and you run out of sick leave days at your district, well, you've got a problem because once you've run out of sick leave days and you're not able to get back to work, you're basically without income. Your district has no mechanism to pay you once you've used up all of your sick leave days. So as you are approaching the end of your usable sick leave days, if your prognosis says that you're not going to be able to get back to work before the sick leave days are up, give TRS a call and let us know that you may be in need of the TRS disability benefit. We'll provide you with all of the forms and the information that you need to get started on TRS disability. We'll send you 2 forms that you'll give to your doctors. We have to have 2 state licensed physicians certify your disability so that we can justify paying you that benefit. Once we start paying you a TRS disability benefit, that is 40% of the contract rate that you were earning at the date that your disability commenced. That 40% then is payable to you directly as supplemental income. And while you're receiving that benefit, TRS is giving you day-for-day service credit for free so that when you are able to return to work, you won't be missing service credit during the time that you were out on disability. You won't have to buy leave of absence time. Ideally, you won't be missing any service credit at all. You won't have to work longer at the end of your career to make up for the time that you were off. As I said, very few members ever actually need this, but we do want to make sure it's included in this explanation of benefits because if you do need it, you've got to know to call TRS to get started. Now, death benefits deserves a much more in-depth explanation because ultimately this will impact your family after you pass away. So I think that TRS death benefits are best explained in the context of your contributions. We've expressed that you pay a 9% contribution into TRS. So when that 9% contribution comes into TRS, it is split into 2 buckets. So there's the 8% retirement bucket. 8% of your earnings is invested for the eventual payment of your first retirement checks. And then there's the other 1% of your contribution or 1% of your earnings that is set aside specifically for death benefits. That goes into a separate death benefits bucket. Still got your name on it. It's still your money. But again, that's just going to sit there throughout the course of your retirement and be used ultimately to pay that death benefit after you pass. Now, we've got these 2 buckets of money that we may need to deal with when you pass away. So we need you to tell us who gets this money. Who do you want to receive this money after you pass? So you would need to name beneficiaries or somehow tell TRS how to handle this money after you pass away. There's a couple ways that you can indicate beneficiaries. One is called the automatic designation. Now, on the top half of your screen right now is kind of a mock-up of the TRS beneficiary designation form, the top section of that form, where you'd indicate your personal information and your marital status. Section 3 of that form is optional. You can check the box for an automatic designation. And just as it says, checking this box is you electing that your dependent beneficiaries, as determined at the point of your death, would receive these monies. Keywords, dependent beneficiaries, and as determined at your death. So if you check this box, you don't have to name a beneficiary, but this designation would keep up with changes to your dependent list. So if at the first job that you accept under TRS, you're in your 20s and maybe you're not yet married and you have no spouse or dependent kids, if you check this box and then a few years later you gain a spouse, well, that spouse would be your automatic primary beneficiary then under that automatic designation. You wouldn't have to name them. You wouldn't have to change anything because we would then determine at your death if you had a spouse. A couple years later, you gain a child. Maybe a couple years after that, you gain another child. Those then are your dependent children. And so they would be considered in the payment then of two beneficiaries when you pass away. As your kids then age out of dependency, you kind of come over the bell curve and your kids start aging out of dependency. Well, they would fall off of the dependent list. And then you're left with your spouse. And if you were to divorce or be widowed, then you'd be back to having no dependent beneficiaries. But this designation would keep up with those changes throughout the course of your career. That's one way to indicate beneficiaries. The other would be to name beneficiaries, to actually write in their name, their date of birth, their social security number, etc., so that we would know exactly who this person is. When you do this under the survivor benefits designation, so you would have to designate for both buckets, but under the 1% survivor benefit bucket, naming a dependent beneficiary is very significant because a dependent beneficiary is entitled to a monthly benefit payable from the 1% bucket. Now, that monthly benefit to a Tier 1 spouse or dependent child would be 50% of the TRS benefit that you were receiving in the month of your death or were entitled to receive in the month of your death. So if you've named a dependent spouse, that spouse is entitled to half of your monthly benefit every single month for the rest of the spouse's life. If you have named a dependent child who is under 22, not married, and still a full-time student, that's our definition of a dependent child, is one who meets all three criteria, one who is under the age of 22, not married, and still a full-time student. So as a dependent child, they would only receive that monthly benefit until they were no longer dependent by our definition, until they no longer met those three criteria. So if they get married, graduate, or cease to be a full-time student, or if they were to turn 22, then they would stop receiving that monthly benefit. Now, any beneficiary, whether it's your spouse, your child, or anyone else, can take a lump sum. So even if you have no spouse or no dependent kids, you can name a beneficiary to receive a lump sum payment on your death. And that lump sum would typically be the amount that's in the 1% bucket. You can name anybody you want to. If you have a life partner to whom you don't have a legal relationship, go ahead and name them. They're entitled to that one-time lump sum, as are your grown kids, your non-dependent kids, or anybody else that you want to name, your brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews, your parents if they're living. You can name a charity. You can name anybody you want to receive that lump sum survivor benefit. While you are living as a retiree, you could also elect to refund that 1% contribution into your own pocket. So if you don't have a dependent spouse and have no dependent kids, you're eligible to request a refund of your survivor benefit monies while you're living. Now, that means two things. It means that there would be then nothing payable on your death. You've defunded that bucket essentially, so there'd be no monies left to pay that lump sum. But it also means then that if you were to marry, if you were to find love after you had taken that refund, there would be no money there to pay a future monthly benefit to that surviving new spouse. So we would have a little conversation about Cupid when you call in to request that refund, just to make sure you understand that if you did find love later and got married, there would be nothing payable on your death. And that's kind of an irreversible decision. The only mechanism to reinstate refunded survivor benefits is to return to work or unretire. Now, the 8% bucket is initially going to be used to pay your first retirement checks. As a Tier 1 retiree, though, you're going to empty this bucket within the first 5 years of retirement. You're going to recoup all of your own contributions and interest within those first 5 years of retirement, typically. This means that we need to have a beneficiary named because if you were to pass away while active or pass away within those first few years of retirement, we'd have to refund any residual or unrecovered 8% contributions to whomever you've named as primary beneficiary. Once you've been retired for about 5 years, though, we're now paying you out of the TRS trust fund for the rest of your life, and there'd be nothing payable out of the 8% bucket. But we do want you naming a beneficiary just to make sure that if you were to pass away before all of that was recovered, we would know who gets that residual contribution. It doesn't matter who you list or their relationship to you because it's only going to be the lump sum. Everybody get the same amount. Let's shift gears again and talk a little bit about retirement timeline and things that you ought to be doing from the end of this recorded webinar until the day that you retire. Ideally, we'd like you to take about 10 minutes every year and review your annual TRS statement online. These statements are typically issued in the first week of December each year. We send you an email that says your TRS benefits statement is now ready to view through your online account. And that's an 8-page PDF document that you can download or print. And that's going to take you about 10 minutes to review. But within that document, we show you every single thing that we know about you from your TRS account, from your demographic information, name, address, phone, your email. We've got all of your service credit listed year by year, where you worked, how much service you earned, what was your salary, how much were your contributions, what are your total contributions, what's payable on death to your beneficiary, who are your beneficiaries, what balances do you owe, have you elected the 2.2 upgrade? Every single thing we know about you is out there in that 8-page document. So it's worth taking 10 minutes a year just to review that and make sure that everything is correct. If you see something that isn't correct or doesn't look correct, or you have a question, you can call and address that either with TRS or with your employer who reported that info. The second thing that you should do is to verify that you have the correct beneficiaries listed. You can do this within that annual benefit statement, or you can just log into your online account and see who your beneficiaries are as listed. You'll want to keep that information up to date as you add a dependent or as you drop a dependent if you were to divorce or be widowed. You just want to make sure that you have the correct people listed there. At some point prior to your retirement, we need you to upload a proof of birth date document. Now, this can be a copy of your driver's license, your passport, or your birth certificate if it has your current name on it. And this tells TRS that we have a correct date of birth on file for you. Because your date of birth determines your age determines your retirement eligibility and whether or not there's a reduction in that benefit. So we have to have a proof of birth date document on file. You should also prepare updated benefit estimates anytime you have new information to add to the benefit estimator, a new salary schedule or contract, a new retirement incentive, if you've taken a new position or changed lanes on the salary schedule, if you've had a significant change to your sick leave. All of these things would result in a new or different retirement estimate result. Additionally, if you see that there is any kind of a new legislative program or a change in legislation that might impact your benefit, go online and do a new estimate to see exactly what that program means for you. There's an AAI program right now for Tier 1 members that would offer you a lump sum settlement of your future cost of living increases. That is something that would also be illustrated then through a benefit estimate. You should prepare updated benefit estimates early and often. So use the estimator anytime you have new information to add to the estimator, new salary information, change to your sick leave. If you see that there's a new legislative program like the Accelerated Annual Increase or AAI program, go online and do a new estimate and see exactly what that program means for you. You should meet with a TRS benefits counselor. On the screen, it says 12 to 18 months before retirement. I would impart that, 4 to 5 years before your retirement, especially if you have a district retirement incentive available to you, take the opportunity to sit down with a TRS counselor and make sure that you're eligible to retire on the date that you want to retire and that you can afford to live on what it is that we're able to pay you at that date. Again, have that counselor fine-tooth comb your account with you. Find those opportunities to add little bits of optional service credit where possible. We'll ask you all the questions. Were you in the military? Did you sub before 1990? Did you teach in another state? We'll add in your reciprocal credit. We'll do all of that with you. And you'll take from that appointment a lot of peace of mind knowing that you've had somebody go through, item by item and make sure that you're getting all that you can out of the plan. You should plan to retire on its time to retire webinar in your retirement year. These are typically held in the months of January and February, and these would give you information about the retirement process, specifically what you need to do, when you need to do it. We'll go through every question that you'll be asked in that personalized retirement interview so you know exactly what to expect. You'll get an email from TRS if you meet minimum age and service credit requirements, letting you know when those webinars are happening so that you can sign up. The next bullet says check in with your financial planner. These are the Tanya Colemans of the world, the Voya financial folks. Anybody who's administering your outside plan, your TRS supplemental savings plan or your 403B, make sure that those contributions are being invested prudently and that they're performing well for you. As you get closer to retirement, you get what are called catch-up contributions or opportunities to contribute more to some of these pre-tax funds. So just make sure that you're meeting regularly with those financial planners so that you can know that you're getting the most out of those outside savings plans as well. Now, once you're retired, just a couple items. One is that post-retirement employment in a TRS covered job isn't just allowed, it is encouraged. We need all of the good substitute teachers that we can get in Illinois, and there's no one better qualified than a retired teacher to manage those classrooms. So as long as you have been in receipt of a TRS pension, meaning you've received that first retirement check, then all you have to do is make sure you don't work more than 120 days or 600 hours per school year. And there is no limit on your earnings. We don't care how much you earn. We just care that you're not working more than that 120 days or 600 hours per school year. Make certain that you check in with TRS before you accept a post-retirement position. There are some other considerations. You can't prearrange post-retirement work. You've got to be 30 days inactive from your last employer. It's kind of a big deal if you're going to go back to work as a retiree that you make sure you have met those requirements for post-retirement employment. Now, once you are retired, TRS is not a fixed income program. We do pay an annual benefit increase. As long as you've reached the appropriate age and have been retired for 1 full year, you're entitled to an annual benefit increase. For Tier 1 members, that increase is 3% compounded annually. That begins the January 1 after you've turned 61, as long as you've been retired for at least 1 year, and then you'd receive those income increases annually every January 1, reflected in your February 1 check. Now, I mentioned that accelerated annual increase program. That is an upfront lump sum program, and that would result in a later start to your increases and lesser increases if you've accepted that upfront lump sum. So make sure you understand the accelerated annual increase program before you elect it. On your screen right now is a lot of information. You can access through that QR code information about the TRS presentation. That's the downloadable PDF slides of this presentation if you'd like to have that as a takeaway. Additionally, there's a QR code from Voya Financial for the TRS Supplemental Savings Plan where you can access information about that plan and how to interact with Voya through that QR code. Then there's all of our contact information. If you want to call us on the phone, there's the number. There's our phone hours. If you're not able to call during those phone hours because it's a work day, use that email address, members@trsil.org. That's a box that is manned by a benefits counselor, so you're always going to get a response from a benefits counselor within 1 business day. To the right of that is our website. That is also the portal to your online account. Below that is our social media info. So if you wanted to follow us on Facebook, X, or Instagram, there's our handles. To the right of that is our YouTube address. If you would like to rewatch this session, or if you would like to seek out last year's It's Time to Retire webinar, or another one called What's Next for new retirees, or just some smaller content-specific videos, if you're a visual learner like me, that's the place to go, is to our YouTube channel. Below that is contact information for the supplemental savings plan, the TRS-SSP. Again, Voya Financial is that administrator. 1-844-877-4572 is the number to reach them. Or that time tap link at the bottom is the where you would click if you wanted to schedule an appointment with a Voya representative. So you'll have all of that available to you. I'm going to thank you for attending this session or for sticking with to the end of this video. As you have questions regarding your TRS benefit, please make TRS the source for that answer. Anytime that you have questions about retirement or having some anxiety about retirement, please let TRS be the antidote to that anxiety. We want the transition from active to retirement to be very smooth, and we want your retirement years to be as stress-free as possible. The best way, I think, to combat that anxiety is to just be informed. So anytime we can provide you with that information or help you through that process, please just give a call. Thanks so much.